Well, I'll go on YouTube. We're about to be doing a good prediction video in reaction to UFC 257, Walker versus Zhang. Right now, I wanted to drop this video a little bit earlier, but a couple of stuff going on. But I still wanted to make sure I got it out ahead of time before the fights actually begin. In this video, just due to specific stuff, I'm only going to focus on the main, co-main, and feature main events. To really get into all of that, I'm going to basically give it a breakdown, give my picks for those three fights. I know the other rest of the card should be good, but I think most people are really interested in these three and what the results of them going to be, especially with everything that's been going on in regards to them. But without further ado, to get started, the first fight that I'm be looking at right here, the feature main event, which is going to be Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. I think most people are going to end up be picking Sergey Pavlovich in this one, but Acosta does have really good movement, and he's also been on a hot streak recently. I know that there was a point in time that, well, it is the heavyweight division, but Costa basically being right outside of the top five is probably something a couple people wouldn't have expected. Probably would have expected certain other prospects to have shined a little bit more, but here we are. In this fight, though, I am also going to be picking Sergey Pavlovich to win this one. However, I wouldn't count Acosta out completely, but despite him having the good movement and him being a very aggressive fighter, and him also being taller than Pavlovich, which you wouldn't expect, especially like he's a very long-rangey fighter. Like he likes getting in the nitty-gritty. He likes kind of doing more infighting, getting in your face, swinging with arms. But the issue is that Sergey likes doing the same thing. And Sergey hits a lot harder. Sergey's a lot more better of a knockout artist, in our opinion. I know that Sergey's been on a bit of a he's been on a downward spiral a bit recently, losing to Aspinall by knockout in the first round, and then him getting beat by Volkov after they went the distance, kind of outclassed by Volkov, to be honest. However, especially with Costa's wild style, him charging in, like leaving himself open to counters, I don't really see that working on a fighter like Sergey. I don't think Costa is fast enough to really get out of the way or get there first, kind of like Aspinall was. And even in that matchup, you did see that Sergey still was able to get to Aspinall first. Like he was the one who hit him first. So when it comes to that inboxing, if we're just trading blows, Sergey's hand speed is actually quite fast. He himself, technically speaking, I think especially recently we've all kind of been forced to admit that Sergey isn't the most technical of fighters. I do think that when it comes to the top five of the heavyweight division, Sergey is probably the least well-rounded fighter, but Sergey also has wins against, like, matchup-wise, he actually has wins against people like Blades and stuff like that. So just because, as we all know with MMA, just because you're well-rounded doesn't mean that you win. So in this aspect, I think Sergey's power is too much. I also think Sergey is more durable than Costa, despite the knockout with Aspinall. I think everyone would get knocked out by Aspinall. I think Sergey he's going to land first. I think Sergey is going to land harder. I think Sergey is going to land more frequently. Then I think that with Costa's style, it actually makes him a lot more viable to be hit by Sergey. I think that he's a lot more available unless they come in with a different game plan, be a lot more, if they decide to be a lot more smarter, a lot more technical, like they don't play Sergey's game, I could see that in the realm of a decision. But especially with Costa's pace and his temperament over, if we're going based off history, how his fights have been, he's probably going to come in. I see him getting chained and then getting a comboed after that. So he probably wouldn't even have the chance to recover. I don't really see Costa getting out of that fight. To be honest, I don't really see this going past the second round. So I'd say Sergey Pavlovich by first or second round TKO or knockout. Moving on to the next fight, which is probably the most controversial fight of all of them, to be honest. We have Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling. I'm a personal fan of Aljo. I know a lot of people tend to be against him because they think his style is boring and so and so. It might also be because I'm a former wrestler myself, but I enjoy watching Aljo's matches. They tend to be very technical showcases. I think he does a great job as far as when he is aggressive, especially. I think he has pretty high level wrestling. I think his backpacking, joking are also really good. Um, I think that sometimes Aljo does leave himself open to counters with how he rushes in, but I think he's also a lot smarter with it in cases, in comparison to like Acosta, for example, the Wilder Cortez Costa. He's still, but still, those openings that he leaves in when he rushes in are kind of where he might get chinned by strikers, like what happened with O'Malley. But fortunately for him, Ortega isn't really known to be a striker. However, Ortega is a much more dangerous submission specialist. But as we saw in the most recent fight with Aljo versus Evloev, you can see that Aljo's grappling is also quite high level. At least his wrestling is very high level. I don't really see Ortega being in a position where he would be able to submit him as easily. But as we can see, this is going to be at a catch weight bout, which goes on to the next thing I'm going to say. Ortega has been having a lot. There's been a lot of suspicious news with Ortega regarding this event, from the rumors of him missing weight, which is why this is at a catch weight. So having a really difficult weight cut, which leaves you drained and a lot more prone to being knocked out because of all that fluid missing from your body and brain and organs. Not only that, Ortega's had a lot of wear and tear. He's been in a lot of brutal fights, from his fight against Volkanovski, this recent one with Lopez. Like Ortega has been beaten down a lot. Like, he's really gone through the ringer. So not only does he have a lot of scarring, a lot more prone to that. I know that Aljo isn't the type of fighter you'd probably worry about getting beaten up too much on the feet, but it's still something to consider. But then but with all the rumors with Ortega, from the really bad weight cut to the apparently he tripped and fell and was taken to the hospital, and now he has to come back and fight. And then even how he looked at the weigh-ins, like, he just doesn't look good. Like, personally, this feels like an easy money. It really feels like this is one of those, the fight should have been canceled, but they can't keep canceling it because of stuff happening to Ortega. You know what I mean? It feels like one of those situations where the fight should be scrapped, but at this point, we're way too invested in it, so we can't just throw it away. Um, don't get me wrong, T City is the much better grappler. He's the much better submission specialist. He he's also much more experienced at this weight class than Aljo is. But Aljo is also quite literally a former champion, the multiple time defending champion. It's if it comes to a full on grappling battle, I would more lean towards Ortega if they were both in great physical conditioning. If they were both in great shape, I would lean towards Ortega being the superior submission specialist. Not really how Aljo is kind of. Aljo is more prone to go for the rear naked, whereas Ortega, he can set up triangles, rear naked, submissions of multiple attempts. Like, Ortega is a lot more experienced, a lot more positionally sound all around. Despite all of that, I think by this point, especially with the Sean O'Malley experience, I think Aljo's kind of recognized his need to be a bit more patient. I don't see Aljo running into the fire. Like, I don't see him playing Ortega's game. I see him being a lot more wary of what Ortega's condition, especially with Ortega being in the alleged state that he probably is, and as the rumors have been implying, I see Aljo being a lot more patient, really playing his game a lot more, pressuring him a lot more, being a lot more consistent, and I kind of see Ortega just breaking over time. Honestly, I see Ortega kind of just breaking down to the pressure, breaking down to the pace, just physically, just being a lot more prone to not be able to keep up. In that instance, I'd have to lean towards Aljamain Sterling. I think his experience is going to shine supreme. I think his conditioning is going to be supreme in this thing. I think his pace is just going to be better in this fight. I just think overall, Aljamain Sterling is the one who's much more prepared for this moment overall in comparison to Brian Ortega. Now, going on to the main event, the call we've all been waiting for, Johnny Walker versus Zhang Minyang. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I don't. I think everyone expects Walker to lose this one. I think if you're just looking at trends, Walker is the most likely out of this. Walker is the less polished striker. They both have knockout power, but Walker's too goofy. To be blunt, Walker plays around way too much. Doesn't take it seriously when he should, and he's past the point where he was in the past, where he was just so much better, or just overall just so hard, much harder to read than his opponents that he kind of just dominated, but just doing goofy stuff. As it is now, the people he's against are too technical, they're too powerful, they're too good, they're too experienced. Walker is just a lot more. He just gets beat on a lot more. And I know that he has a win against somebody like Khalil Roundtree, which is a much higher in the division right now. However, that was a different version of Roundtree. Like that was before Roundtree really even cleaned up his technique even more and went to Thailand and really refined his Muay Thai. That was before, like, yeah, Roundtree was really battle tested to that level, like he was against Alex Pereira, and even the experience and comfortability and strategic mindset he demonstrated with the Jamal Hill fight. I don't see Walker, especially the type of tear Minyang has been on. Minyang has a lot more knockout power. He's a lot more technical fire. He's a lot more aggressive, which with how Johnny Walker's history has been, as we all know, he's either about to get a goofy highlight reel knockout, or he's going to get goofily knocked out himself. There's kind of no in between with Johnny Walker because of how his fight stuff. So, but Walker, I just think that if Walker does what he usually does, he's going to just get flatlined brutally, to be honest. Um, we saw him try to do it against Ankalaev, didn't work out. We saw it happen with Hill, it didn't work out. We saw this. We overall, we just Walker's history, even in the past, like just Walker's history does not suggest that he's a reliable pick in this type of situation. And I know his brother has been on a tear in the heavyweight division, but his brother has a completely different style than he does. His one, first of all, he's a striker. His brother is more for grappler. So he gets fit. They both are finishers. One with the submissions, the other ones with the knockout. But the difference is his brother is a lot more patient. His brother is a lot more technical. Walker is a lot more aggressive. Walker's swings are a lot wilder. Walker over relies on his creativity and athleticism, which doesn't work if you aren't at a high enough level with those styles. Somebody like a Dricus Duplessis, I know he just got dominated by Hamza, but somebody like a Dricus Duplessis or even a Rainer de Ritter, like those are characters that having awkward and unique styles can work out very well for them. And even if you want a bit more controlled version of it, like a Jane Silva or Mauricio Huffy, like those are examples of fighters that they are very fluent. They're very fluid. They're very relaxed. They're very comfortable. They're very creative in how they strike and how they fight. But yet, still, there's still a thought behind it. There's still experience behind it. There's still very technical decision making behind these actions and events. Whereas for Walker, I feel as if he just has a full on crash course, runs straight into the fire, and then he just does stuff. And I mean it exactly like that. I feel like he just does stuff, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And he's at the level of competition now where that isn't enough. Like just going in and just wheeling, just throwing random out of position overhands and just kicking and just smiling. And the like when he did that in his, it's like the jokes and all of that stuff are fine. Like it's kind of similar to Kevin Holland in the aspect of talking shit and goofing around and all that is fine until you're now against the fighters that they're too good for you not to act seriously. Even if you take the fight seriously in your mind, you have to fight like you take it seriously. You have to actually pay attention. You have to actually be technical. You have to actually utilize proper strikes in the aspect. And by proper, I mean strikes that are thought about in how they're placed, even if they don't look like it. You can't just rush in and be like, I'm just going to overwhelm him because we're no longer at that stage of the game. So to summarize all that in this fight, I got Zhang Minyang winning by first or second round knockout. I don't even see this going into the third round. I think this is about to be another highlight reel KO against Johnny Walker, unfortunately. And I think that's it. But that was my breakdown on the main, co-main, and feature main event fights. Let me know what you guys think. Give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Everyone have a great day. Bye.